Here's an interesting stat for you guys. There are 8 pitchers in MLB since 2020 to have a strikeout to walk ratio of above 17%, a whip below 1.10, and an ERA below 3.20. These are names that you would definitely expect to be here. Corbin Burnes, Garrett Cole, Brandon Woodruff, Kevin Gausman, Zach Wheeler, Walker Buehler, Lance Lynn, and Sandy Alcantara. Here's the interesting part. In the 2-year window of this stat, 7 of the 8 pitchers here have received Cy Young votes, with some of them winning the award. There's one guy left off from that list, and I'm pretty sure you can guess who it is based on the topic of this video. If you ask me what the best move of the MLB offseason was before the lockout, I'd be hard-pressed to find a clear-cut answer. While there's tons of great deals to choose from, I believe that Sandy Alcantara's extension has to be one of the best signings since the 2021 season concluded for both sides. The Marlins have had a sneaky good offseason, as the organization has taken its first steps by signing Avisail Garcia and trading for Joey Wendell. Gold Glove winning catcher Jacob Stallings will be behind the plate to work with the talented pitching staff they have as well. But none of those moves have the same influence than inking their prized ace to a team-friendly 5-year extension worth $56 million. It's the largest guaranteed contract ever made to a first-time arbitration-eligible MLB pitcher, sure, but if his track record is any indication, Alcantara's worth will be far more than his current $11 million annual value. If and when Alcantara continues his success down the line, the Marlins can also exercise a 6th-year, $21 million club option in 2027, his age 31 season. But this deal is so much more significant than just the numbers that surround it. Alcantara can become the first pitcher in Marlins history to spend 10 major league seasons with the team, which is a stat I could hardly believe when I first read it. The move is both a love letter to the fans as well as an essential deal to improve the team long term. But today's video isn't about the Marlins spending smart, it's about who they spent it on in Sandy Alcantara. They stole him away from the Cardinals in the Marcell Ozuna trade back in 2017. For those who don't remember, St. Louis gave up a ton in this trade, and Sandy was the highest ranked prospect of the 4 that was sent over to Miami at number 6. Over 3 seasons from rookie ball to AA in their system, Alcantara pitched to a respectable 3.95 ERA in 369 innings. Also included was Magneuris Sierra, their number 7 prospect, and Zach Gallen, whom Miami flipped to get budding star Jazz Chisholm Jr. So it's safe to say they won this deal, I think. After all, when St. Louis trades an outfielder or trades for an outfielder, it usually doesn't end well. Sandy was still working through the kinks in the early parts of his first full season in 2019. The first time I truly took notice of his brilliance was in his 15th career start in May of that year, which was already his 4th career start against the Mets. He managed to throw a Maddox, also known as a shutout with under 100 pitches, and he managed to finish this shutout with just 89 pitches, one of just 4 pitchers to finish a shutout with under 90 pitches since 2016. He destroys my favorite team on a regular basis. He has more starts in his career against the Mets than any other team, and he's punished them pretty much every time out with a 2.82 ERA and 1.01 whip in 67 innings. And with this extension, he's here to stay, continuing to torment me for the next half decade. But enough about the Mets, I talk about them plenty as is. Let's get back to Sandy. Being a workhorse, Alcantara's breed of pitcher is becoming rarer in the modern state of the game. With his MLB leading 33 starts in 2022, Alcantara finished the year with 205 2/3 innings pitched. This made him the first Marlins pitcher to throw over 200 innings since Mark Buehrle in 2012, which is a decade ago at this point. His 445 innings since 2019 is the 8th most of any pitcher in the game, just 35 innings behind first place Zach Wheeler. And his control last season was also the best of any point in his career, with a 6.0 walk percentage being 9th best in MLB among pitchers with at least 180 innings pitched. Sandy doesn't just consistently take the bump every 5th day, he goes pretty deep every time he goes out on the mound. He's one of the few starters that can consistently handle pitching beyond the 6th inning, with 16 of his 33 outings from last year going over 6 innings pitched. Though he finished the season with just 1 complete game to his credit, Sandy pitched an MLB high 7 games where he worked at least 8 innings and allowed 2 runs or less, allowing 2 runs in just 1 of those starts. He also managed to lose 4 of those games. Hey, it's like the Marlins have their own Jacob deGrom. Speaking of the Marlins having their own deGrom, Sandy Alcantara somehow cranked an 110-mile-per-hour double off him in 2019. It's the 5th hardest hit ball against Jacob deGrom in the past 3 years, and the 2nd hardest hit against a deGrom fastball in the same time frame. The first is this 112-mile-per-hour double play from Christian Yelich last season. For reference, Sandy's career slash line is a .055 batting average with a negative 51 OPS plus. This whole thing is ridiculous. Anyways, overall, Sandy Alcantara had the best season of his career in 2021 with a 3.19 ERA, 1.02 1.08 whip, and 201 strikeouts. And he managed the 15th best ERA among qualified starters, despite two really bad blow-up starts against the Dodgers and Rockies that ballooned his ERA. He allowed 18 runs in just 5 innings combined in those starts. If we get cheeky and remove those two outliers from his 2021 season, which you should never really do, his ERA falls from 3.19 all the way down to 2.47, which would have been third in MLB. Really makes you think, huh? On the previous topic of Alcantara going deep into games, he also maintained his high velocity while laboring far into his starts. Sandy Alcantara and Garrett Cole were the only two starting pitchers in 2021 to throw at least 7 pitches of 99 miles per hour or more in the 9th inning of the game. We'll be talking more about Sandy's fastball later on. Despite all these impressive stats and accolades accrued in just 3 years' time, as I mentioned before, Sandy Alcantara has never received a Cy Young vote. While I'd hardly call him a dark horse since most of baseball fans are aware of how good he is already, I think Sandy Alcantara will be a good sneaky pick for the 2022 NL Award if he can stay healthy. My money is still going to go on my guy Jacob deGrom, but similar to Corbin Burnes in 2020, Sandy has shown us a flash of brilliance that can certainly be continued long term, and that's going to make him my dark horse for next year. Let's dive deeper. Okay, so most people know that Sandy took a serious step forward in 2021, so what exactly did he change from the previous 2 seasons to emerge more dominant than ever before? Well, it was the disengagement of his four-seamer as his primary pitch that helped elevate his game and freshen up his arsenal. In 2019, he threw his fastball 30.2% of the time, more than any other pitch. But by the end of 2021, that usage rate went all the way down to 21.6%, below the rates of his sinker, slider, and changeup. So let's talk about those 3 pitches. His sinker is his new primary, thrown 28.2% of the time last season, and the negative 16 run value on his sinker was the 3rd best of anyone in MLB, slightly trailing Ranger Suarez and Adrian Hauser. He was one of only 16 pitchers in the league to throw at least 500 sinkers with a whiff percentage of at least 18%. Hitters averaged a -4 launch angle against his sinker to go along with the -1 launch angle on average against his changeups. This made Sandy a ground ball machine. His 53.3 ground ball percentage was 4th best in MLB among qualified pitchers, just behind Dallas Keuchel, Lance McCullers, and Luis Castillo. Most of this came as soft contact, with his 19.3 percentage rating being 7th highest among qualified pitchers. So while he used his changeup and sinker to get soft ground balls, he was using his slider to get as many whiffs as possible, with a whiff percentage of 38.9 on sliders being his highest among all pitches. Speaking of his slider, Sandy actually jacked up the usage of his slider towards the last third of the season and saw some really positive results down the stretch. When we look at his slider usage, it's at its lowest in April and May, it ticks up a little bit in June and July, and then skyrockets in August and September to near 30%. And this correlates with a rise in his strikeout percentage as well, to great new heights. The positive change in his slider was thanks in part to pitching coach Mel Stoudemire Jr., who was quoted saying, "We did a lot of work out in the bullpens and getting to those edges, and in him eventually getting the feel for that. He changed his hand position a little bit on the slider, and we got him mentality-wise just to think more fastball than breaking ball with it." Interestingly enough, the positive change of results on his slider coincided with a decrease in movement. The key was the velocity on the slider increasing by 3 miles per hour and the movement on the pitch mimicking that of his fastball. His slider revelation was another key in helping him rely less on his fastball and also helped him put together the best stretch of any point in his career. When he jacked up the usage of his slider between August and October of last season, he pitched 80 innings and attributed a 3.04 ERA, 0.95 whip, and 28.4 strikeout percentage. Although Sandy moved away from the four-seam fastball for his primary pitch, as I mentioned before, it actually looked better than ever because of this. The average velocity of his fastball jumped to 98.1 miles per hour, the highest mark at any point in his career, and the 2nd highest average value in MLB, trailing only Jacob deGrom. His prowess in velocity isn't just limited to his fastball either, with his 97.6 average speed on his sinker placing 4th in MLB, his 90.4 average miles per hour on his slider placing 4th, and his 91.8 average miles per hour on his changeup placing 2nd in MLB only to Miguel Castro. This dude throws hard. Throwing hard isn't the only thing he's good at, but man, is he really good at it. Alcantara's issue with his pitches, especially his fastball, is still where he locates them. His fastball would frequently land in the high center zone over the heart of the plate instead of being fully elevated out of the strike zone. If we look at the StatCast zone provided by Baseball Savant of his sinker and fastball, both pitches thrived when they were thrown below the zone, yet Sandy obviously had a much much easier time doing this with his sinker than his fastball. When Sandy gets his pitches carved outside of the zone, it's nearly impossible for opposing hitters not to go fishing. His 36.7 out-of-zone swing percentage was third in MLB, trailing only Tyler Anderson and Corbin Burns. His zone swing percentage of 72.7% is also remarkably high at fourth in MLB, but we can see the issue when looking at the contact percentages of these two areas, 59.4% all the way up to 84.3% compared to the in-zone rating. If Sandy can figure out a way to paint his fastball above and below the strike zone more consistently, he can use it more and become even more lethal than he already is. With the emergence of Trevor Rogers, the consistency of Pablo Lopez, the trade for Jesus Luzardo, and the hopeful development of Sixto Sanchez, the Marlins have themselves an incredibly talented, young rotation of pitchers. If they can all stay healthy and pitch a full season, there's no reason that they shouldn't be a top 10 pitching staff in baseball, maybe even top 5. And leading them through it all will be Sandy Alcantara, on his way to being one of the longest tenured Marlins ever. I really enjoyed this quote from his presser after signing his extension. He said, "I've been here for a couple years. I see everything the Marlins have been doing coming true. I know everything they do, and I love this city so much. I know we can win one day. I said it last year, but we didn't make it, but we've got more opportunities to keep competing to win the game and win a World Series." If that doesn't give you chills as a Marlins fan and a baseball fan, nothing will. We can dive more into pitch mix stats with 2-strike counts and non-2-strike counts because it gets even more layered there, but I think I'm going to cut off my analysis of Sandy Alcantara here. I don't know what the future holds for him and the Marlins, but I definitely think their future is brighter than it has been in any recent time. If anyone is going to lead this young rotation, it's going to be Sandy Alcantara. And for all the reasons I mentioned before, he's my dark horse for the 2022 NL Cy Young. Let's see if I can go 2 for 2. But that'll do it for this video. I'm the Jolly Olive, and I'll see you guys next time.